Right, we're recording. Chalo. So SRC, right? SRC. So I'm gonna just add an SRC and I'm gonna quickly add index.js there. Right. Last lecture में क्या पढ़ा था? Promise, right? तो ठीक है. We are gonna learn about a type of promise today. एक promise का ही एक extension है जो कि आज हम पढ़ेंगे. But first we need to understand what do we mean by API. Anyone who knows about API. Full form किसी को पता है? एप्लीकेशन प्रोग्रामिंग इंटरफेस. करेक्ट डेटा होता है सर. ओके ठीक है, ये एक मिसकंसेप्शन. लेट मी क्विकली डील विद दैट. चलो. सो इन अ फुल स्टैक वेब डेवलपमेंट वी हैव टू basic or fundamental components, right? What are those? Full stack web development या फिर rather web development. Front end and back end. Yes, so we have front end and we have back end, right? तो फ्रंट एंड में क्या क्या करते हैं हम लोग? What do we do in front end and all? So far what have you seen? HTML CSS, I guess we can put it in UI, right? Whatever user can see. Yes, so can we put it inside dynamic user interface or UI? Yes. So we need data for these dynamic user interface, right? User interface तो we can create with HTML also, but उसको dynamic करने के लिए we need data to play with. If we want to log in some user, we want to check कि वो user signed up है या नहीं है. Yes. So these data are stored where? कहाँ पे? यहाँ पे, right? So in backend there is stuff there where we store data, right? Be it database, be it anything, but कुल मिला के backend में we store data, right? Now there is a connection between these two that has to be maintained so that we don't have any issues और data का लेन देन होता है, right? So we have something which is sitting in middle. क्या बोलते हैं उसको? उसको बोलते हैं सर्वर. ठीक, सर्वर बोलते हैं, राइट? ये सर्वर एक्ट्स एज द मिडिल मैन बिटवीन फ्रंट एंड बैक एंड. ठीक, अभी ये सर्वर के पास ना इट हैज रेडी डेटा टू बी शेयर्ड. ठीक, इसके पास जो है वो डेटा रेडी है. ठीक, एपीआई की फुल फॉर्म क्या बोली थी आप लोगों ने अभी? आई मिस्ड इट समवेयर. एप्लीकेशन प्रोग्रामिंग इंटरफेस, राइट? तो बेसिकली एपीआई क्या होता है? लेट्स से, लेट मी क्विकली एक्सप्लेन यू गाइस हियर. लेट्स से आई हैव एप्लीकेशन 1, राइट? Again, let's say, let me call it software 1, right? Software 1, and this is called software 2. ठीक, let's assume कि ये software needs help of this software to run properly, right? Something should be there to connect these two, for bridging that gap, for this thing to work properly, right? This thing is actually, that bridge is going to be called as your application programming interface or API. ठीक ठीक, तो if there is something which connects two different software, that's going to be called API. ठीक, तो not exactly data या फिर data को fetch करना. API is something which connects two different softwares. इतना क्लियर है हमको एवरीवन कि एपीआई होता क्या है? एवरीवन ठीक ठीक, बिकॉज यू सी हमने वी कॉल्ड सेट टाइम आउट, सेट इंटरवल आल्सो एपीआई. रिमेंबर वी कॉल्ड देम वेब एपीआईज एंड ऑल, राइट? तो वो क्या कर रहे थे? वो हमारे सिंक्रोनस जावास्क्रिप्ट को एसिंक्रोनस जावास्क्रिप्ट के साथ जोड़ रहे थे. राइट? उसी तरीके से when we were learning about local storage, that was also part of your web API, right? So it was connecting temporary storage with our application, right? Right? So yeah, that's API, not exactly data. But let's say front end में data दिखाने के लिए we need data from the server. तो हम क्या करते हैं? We send something which is called fetch. Fetch का English meaning क्या होता है? Just based on vocabulary. Get करना, लाना, data लाना, right? Right? तो बस वही काम है. It gets the data from your server to your front end and serves it. ठीक. अभी इसके अंदर there comes many more parameters, but this thing can be divided into something which is called ये अभी नहीं समझोगे. Let me tell you this CRUD. Have you heard about CRUD? Right, right. So this thing is actually your create, update, create, read, update, and delete. Right? So by using fetch, we can create data from front end to back end. We can read the data that is present in the server. We can update that data and we can delete that data. ठीक. And when we fetch something, this entire setup will be your API. उस केस में. ठीक. ठीक. But इतना सब कुछ करने के बजाय you can just keep this in mind कि just tell this thing to be an API. ठीक. But then there is bit more complication इनको API बोलने के लिए, because you might have heard about something called API endpoints. Ever heard about them? API endpoints. तो क्या होता है बैकएंड में ना, whenever we get something from database, right? Database से जब हम कुछ लेते हैं तो it's in form of an URL, right? So let's say we have a website, right? And it's called Masai School. ठीक. masaischool.com. So if you visit a website like this, you are going to be thrown at your dashboard. Dashboard पे जाके पहुंचा देगा वो आपको, right? Right? Let's say आप इसके अंदर लॉग इन करते हो एज ए एडमिन, राइट? एडमिन समझते हम लोग, एडमिन द ओनर, राइट? तो इट अटैचेस समथिंग लाइक दिस टू इट. आपके यूआरएल में है, यूआरएल गेट्स अपडेटेड, राइट? राइट? तो ये जो होते हैं ना, these are endpoints, like these are somewhat, you can call them routes also. So if those endpoints are correctly met, you will be sent to a certain page. ठीक. तो is this part clear कि what your API is and what getting and fetching and all data is? Theory part clear है क्या सबको? What all happens there? Everyone? Right? ठीक है. So now that we know कि why and how the fetch is gonna go and work, can you repeat? All right, let me just summarize everything quickly. So we have two setups, front end and back end. Front end shows the data and back end stores that data. Right? Now we need to get the data from backend somehow, right? So that fetch is gonna help us for doing that. It's gonna get us the data. We can use that data. We can create that data from our side. We can update and delete it by using fetch itself. ठीक. तो yeah, that's pretty much it. Then we talked about API कि API का मतलब ये नहीं होता है कि we have a data. सिर्फ data मतलब API नहीं होता. API is basically bridge between any two software. ठीक. तो इफ यू हैव टू सॉफ्टवेयर, वो एक दूसरे पे डिपेंडेंट है, तो वो डिपेंडेंसी फुलफिल करने वाला ब्रिज जो है उसको एपीआई बोलोगे. बस इतना था. इतना बात क्लियर है सबको? ठीक है. नाउ लेट्स टॉक अबाउट दैट ब्रिज दैट वी जस्ट डिस्कस्ड इन हियर. ठीक. तो लेट मी शो यू गाइज अ फ्यू एपीआई एंड उसके बाद फेच के बारे में बात करते हैं. ठीक. सो let's start with regress. ठीक. तो regress a hosted REST API, right? REST you guys एक छोटा सा ये चीज है, होमवर्क है आपका, चेक करके आना REST क्या है. It's gonna be related to your CRUD only. ठीक. छोटा सा टर्म है बस. चलो. तो यहाँ पे we have this regress.in, right? तो this is your website. if I go and add isme /API/users, let's see if we are getting something or not. Can you see I'm getting something, some data, right? So basically मैंने क्या किया, I know a API endpoint for this, and that is /API and उसके बाद /users. If I write this ना, it's gonna send me this data in return. ठीक, तो for now we are gonna use mock servers because हमारे पास अपने कोई server नहीं है. So we are gonna use this mock server, and in few lectures we'll see how we can create our own mock servers. Right? Yes, I'm hitting endpoint of an API. ठीक, so this thing is throwing me some data, right? And now I can use this data in my application. ठीक है, तो when we visit a API, no, we are gonna see something which is called documentation. Documentation के बारे में जानते हैं क्या? We have read documentation, right? Basically, if you have something, how that thing works is given in your documentation. तो इसी तरीके से every API is gonna have some documentation, right? तो एक और छोटी सी चीज quickly, let me discuss it here only. You're gonna see few things very usually. So you're gonna see get, you're gonna see post, you're gonna see patch, and you're gonna see delete. ठीक, तो I'm just gonna clear it here itself कि इनका मतलब क्या होता है. Remember we talked about CRUD, right? Create, update, read, update, and delete. Right? So this get is whenever you do a get, no, you want to read that data, right? If you want to do a post, you want to create a data. If you're patching something, you're basically updating the data. And if you're deleting something, it's pretty straightforward. You are just deleting, right? So just keep these terms in mind. API जब भी हम use करते हैं, तो we are gonna use this. ठीक है, चलो back to API. Now you see we have this get list user. क्या मतलब है इसका? If I go on this thing, if I request that, we are gonna get a list of users, which is gonna be something like this, right? Let's say I'm gonna get this thing, तो मुझे सिर्फ एक single user मिलेगा based on their ID, right? So let's say I'm visiting here. If I update this ID, right? If I update this ID, I'm gonna get a different user. If I update this ID again, I'm gonna get a different user again. ठीक, तो basic stuff, how URL changes and data changes and all. So that we are gonna discuss more shortly. चलो, तो back in here यहाँ पे, ठीक है. So fetch, right? Now what is fetch? Like based on JavaScript promises, we knew कि promises were object. What is fetch then? People who have seen pre-class, I expect you guys to answer at least. Okay, object, fetch URL, okay, get data from server and send to other server. Method, okay, right? Anything else? Modern way of making request, all right. What about others? Rahul, correct. Acha, what do you guys think about this? Fetch is a promise. 1 or 0, समझ आया कि नहीं समझ आया, या फिर can it be that way or can it not? ठीक है, चलो एक काम करते हैं. Let's write fetch in console. So in here, let's say I'm gonna do a console.log of fetch, right? And let me just call this. Take, so have we not run live server or what? Oh, हम लोग स्क्रिप्ट टैग में लिख रहे हैं, फिर से वही गलती. Let's get this and let's write in index.js. ठीक, so if I do this, what am I getting? I'm console.logging this fetch. Am I getting promise? Right? And what does that says? It's rejected. Right? Right? So what do we mean by rejected? That thing has failed. How many states do we have in promise? Quick revision. Everyone? States kitne promise mein? Three. We have resolve, we have a reject, and we have a pending. Right? So let's say if I go and write fetch and I'm gonna call it. So ये क्या हो रहा है? We have a inbuilt function or method which is called fetch, right? It's gonna be something like this. It's gonna be a function inbuilt wala, and it is returning a promise. So whenever you're calling it, that's why we are getting a promise. I hope this thing is pretty clear. We have seen function returning promise in last lecture too. है ना? Yes. So what does this fetch requires ताकि it goes in either pending या फिर resolved state? What do we need to pass in fetch? It's basically a URL. कहाँ से fetch करना चाहते हो आप? ठीक है? So now why would we need fetch for URL and all? As we have seen, data can be in millions, right? And it takes time to retrieve them. Yes, it takes time to retrieve them. So is this gonna be in the same line with JavaScript? क्योंकि JavaScript is synchronous and this thing might take time. So should JavaScript wait for it या फिर आगे बढ़ना चाहिए? We should move on. Right? So now this thing has to be dealt with your asynchronous program. That's why we are using fetch. Fetch क्या return कर रहा है? It's returning a promise. So we are basically using promise to deal with this asynchronous call. Right? So let's see. I'm gonna copy a request wala this thing. Let me get a URL. Let's get list user, and I'm gonna get this thing. So now in here, what we have to do is we have to write fetch, and uske andar we have to pass the URL in your strings, right? So now, if I go and do console.log of this fetch, what should I get? What are we expecting at least? Now that I'm passing a URL. Now it's pending, right? Matlab, we are sending the data in fetch and it's starting to work. ठीक, but this is the initial state. हमने fetch को console किया at its very first phase, right? Now this fetch is gonna take some time. Let's say it takes 2 seconds and it fetches the data. But हमने क्या किया? इसको 0.1 millisecond इसके start होते ही we printed it. That's why the promise is pending. So how do we deal with a pending promise? Was there any methods in promise that we can use? Correct, Jeevan. What about others? Correct, Karan. Dot then dot catch. Remember dot then dot catch. Right? So we should go with that. Right? Okay, so let me just retrieve this thing and we are gonna comment this one out. तो यहाँ पे आते हैं and let's make our dot then. Right? And इसके अंदर we have to pass a callback function, right? We're passing a callback function and I'm going to write a response here, right? It can be anything, but it's industry standard res लिखना. ठीक? I'm going to go and do a console.log of this res. So are we getting something in response? अब response हमें आ रहा है. The promise is actually getting fulfilled. Yes, no, guys, response, we are getting something. Right? We're getting a body, we're getting a header, we are getting all this stuff. But data कहाँ है? मैंने इसको भेजा कि data ढूंढ के लाओ and it's not giving me any data. Any idea? अच्छा एक काम करते हैं. Let's go and check it in network tab. ठीक कि network tab में are we getting the data somewhere or not? So if I refresh it, index.html is loading एंड देन ठीक है, एक और बार लोड करूंगा, जस्ट कीप एन आई ऑन दिस URL, राइट, कितनी देर बाद कॉल हो रहा है। तो आई एम गोना रिफ्रेश दिस पेज अगेन, index.html हैज लोडेड, एंड उसके बाद आफ्टर अ फ्यू सेकेंड्स दिस URL इज रनिंग, राइट, द प्रॉमिस इज वर्किंग इन इट्स एसिंक फैशन, वो तो अपना काम कर रहा है, राइट। नाउ इफ आई क्लिक ऑन दिस कि हमें क्या डेटा मिल रहा है, वी आर गोना सी अ रिस्पॉन्स साइड फ्रॉम दैट URL कि क्या क्या डेटा आ रहा है वहां से। तो request method is get, that's fine, and status code is 200. Whenever the status code is 200 ना, that means server is working properly and we are able to, अगर हम fetch कर रहे हैं तो we are able to fetch the data, right? Now data is not provided here, तो how can I find data? Anything that you think we might have data somewhere? इसमें से किसी भी टैब में response वाला, let's see, okay, let's see. तो in response do we have that data? रिस्पॉन्स में डेटा है क्या? ठीक है, तो नाउ दिस थिंग इज स्टोर्ड इन रिस्पॉन्स, राइट, रेस में ये डेटा स्टोर्ड, बट वी आर नॉट प्रिंटिंग इट, क्यों? क्योंकि दैट रिस्पॉन्स ये जो रिस्पॉन्स है ना, इट्स एक्चुअली प्रॉमिस इन इटसेल्फ, ठीक, रिस्पॉन्स भी एक प्रॉमिस है। अब भाई हमारे पास दो प्रॉमिस आ गए, राइट, लेट मी जस्ट क्लोज दिस थिंग क्विकली एंड लेट्स गेट बैक टू आवर VS Code। ठीक है, तो let's say quickly I have a promise one function, right, and I have a function which is called promise two, ठीक, just assume कि इसके अंदर I'm returning a promise, right, तो I want to run function two just after function one. Usually I would have gone with promise one, and इसके अंदर function I would have gone with callback functions, right, and इसके अंदर I would have called promise two, right, but given that हम promises use कर रहे हैं, do we need to go for callback help? No. Do we have something which is called promise chaining? ऐसा कुछ था क्या? हमने पढ़ा था लेक्चर के लास्ट 20 मिनट्स में, मे बी, राइट, ठीक है, तो लेट मी शो यू। नाउ दिस console.log res, ये जो res है ना, दैट इज डेटा, बट ये डेटा वी नीड रिस्पॉन्स फ्रॉम इट, वी नीड टू कन्वर्ट इट इनटू आवर यूजेबल फॉर्मेट विच इज JSON, राइट। तो मैं क्या करूंगा, आई एम गोना कॉल वन मोर मेथड विच इज गोना बी कॉल्ड JSON, राइट। नाउ व्हाट इज दिस JSON? Can you guys see? It's again a promise. So once I have run a dot, then should I run one more dot then to deal with the second promise? Does that make sense? Right? So let me write it and let's see if we are getting something now. If I go and console.log res, let's see. We are getting syntax error. Okay. That's fine. Okay, so we are getting undefined. Why are we getting undefined? Anyone, any guess? We're doing res.json and this function is throwing me undefined. We haven't returned it, right? Return kiya hai kya? No, right? Let's see. If I return it now, let me go and refresh it. So now are we getting the data? Are we getting the data that we asked for? Tick. And then you can just go and add your catch and all. Right? So if you're going with correct URL, you don't have to worry about this error. सर ऑल डेटा स्टोर होगा सर्वर से, तभी कंपाइलर डॉट देन पर जाएगा, या डेटा जितना आए उसी को शो कर देगा पेज पर? नो, इट विल वेट फॉर ऑल द डेटा। इस एंड पॉइंट पे, इस URL पे जितना भी डेटा है ना इन योर सर्वर, इट्स गोना गेट दैट एंटायर डेटा एंड देन शो यू हियर। दैट्स व्हाई वी नीड दैट एसिंक फीचर। ठीक है guys, retrieving the data by using fetch, is that clear or is there any doubt? Please let me know. I might as well repeat entire thing once again. Anyone? All right, let me just quickly recap it once again. Take let me just comment this one out. एक काम करता हूँ, just let me get this URL. ठीक है, Now let's come in here and I'm going to store this URL in let URL so that I can use it anywhere now. Chalo. Now I'm going to write fetch and I'm going to pass that URL in it, right? So am I calling a promise function? Am I going to get promise in return in line number 46? Everyone, guys, 10, everyone, please quickly. Yes. So we should deal with this promise. I'm going to write a dot then for that, and dot then takes a callback function, right? Yahan pe I'm going to get it as res and I'm going to console dot log this res. Take now this res we are going to get, but it won't be in a format that we want. Take response is okay. We're getting the status as 200. So matlab this thing is working, right? We have to convert our response into a usable format, which is JSON format. मैं क्या करूँगा? I'm gonna return this thing and I'm gonna write res.json and I'm gonna call this. Now this thing is again a promise. So we need to deal with this promise also. So I will go with another dot then. Does that make sense? Guys, another dot then. Everyone? Check. Now in this dot then also we are gonna go for a callback function, right? इसके अंदर फिर से res लिख दिया. Again, guys, this thing can have any name. ठीक. And now I'm gonna console dot log this res. ठीक. And we are finally gonna get our data. ठीक. We are getting it in. All right. So let's say I had an data array, right? मैंने एक data array बना रखा था. So can I go in here and I can maybe send my data in there? Can I update my data array? How should I do that? We have data, we have an object, and uske andar there is a key value pair which is called data, which is an array. So, acha, if I go and do data dot push and iske andar I do res, what am I doing? मैं अपने डेटा एरे में पूरा का पूरा रिस्पॉन्स थ्रो कर रहा हूँ, राइट? सो लेट मी जस्ट शो यू एक बार. This entire object is going to be present in this array. We don't want that. We just want that data. ठीक? Yes, Santosh, it is in JSON format. ठीक? So we need to access this specific key, right? So we are going to do res.data, res.data. All right. ठीक है. अभी once we have done res.data, it's still not correct if I go and do data. Let's see what we're getting. क्या मिल रहा है हमें? We're getting an array with an array inside it. तो array के अंदर we have an array, right? We don't need this also. For here मैं क्या करूँगा? I'm just gonna replace data with res.data. ठीक? It's an array. We can simply replace it. है ना? So now if I console.log यहाँ पे and let me just go and console.log data. If I go and do it here, now this data will be in your array format, right? And we can use it. Take why I didn't console it here, क्योंकि let data equals to empty array. This entire thing is going to be sent in your web API wala section. So JavaScript is going to skip this and it's going to print an empty array directly. Take that's why I printed it here. Data fetching clear है क्या guys? Clear है क्या? Clear है क्या? Any doubts in data fetching? No? ठीक है. तो आज के लेक्चर में we are gonna see few more APIs and how maybe we can use that. ठीक. एक छोटा सा हिंट है हर एक API के लिए. Go and read their documentation. You'll be fine. ठीक. So request हो गया fakestore.com. Right. So again, this thing is gonna be your API. यहाँ पे you have an example code. You have to write fetch and whatever data you want to fetch, and then this all stuff we already know that. Right. Let's see in here. If you want products data, you are gonna send this URL and you're gonna retrieve this data. right? So I have a small task for you guys. एक second, let's take that out. से कन्वर्ट किया तभी कंसोल नहीं कर सकते क्या? अगेन डॉट देन जेसन ने डेटा से कन्वर्ट किया है तभी कंसोल। देखो हर्षित, जब आप तभी के तभी कंसोल करोगे ना, यू माइट गेट प्रॉमिस पेंडिंग। व्हाई? बिकॉज डॉट जेसन इज ऑल्सो प्रॉमिस, राइट? तो डॉट देन हम क्यों यूज करते हैं? ताकि एसिंग फंक्शन जब कंप्लीट हो जाए डॉट देन तब चलेगा वो कोड, ठीक है? तो इफ यू वांट टू मूव इट प्रॉपरली यू विल गो विद डॉट देन, right? Small doubt, as we're fetching data which is already in JSON, why we are converting it into JSON? See, you're not fetching data based on JSON, right? You're fetching data from this server. All right, this server is gonna serve you data based on itself, right? Let me just show you once. Let me show you a different API. So let's say I go and do it here, right? So different API might have different parameters. Again, that documentation will help you, right? So let's say I go and do this here and I'm gonna write dot then function, and iske andar we are gonna do res, and I'm gonna do a console dot log res, right? So again again, yeah, we're getting a response, right? So this response is your stuff. Iske andar this res is again a data. You have to retrieve your JSON data from itself, right? Iske andar you have a different stuff. These things are used in their own separate manner, like encryption and all. For now, we don't need to know about this. We just need to understand that this res is again a encrypted type of data. ठीक, तो इसको read करने के लिए we have to go and write JSON. ठीक, and this method is promise in itself. So for dealing with that promise, we have to go and write dot then again. Hope that makes sense. All right, ठीक है. तो guys, again, small task for you all. Use this URL. I'm gonna URL नहीं दूंगा. I'm gonna give you the API का link. Visit this API and go and fetch data. You guys can select any of these that works. Login token मत करना. Any of these three. Fetch the data and try to access one of the objects. Right? One of the objects जैसे try to access the address or maybe anything. Everyone please try. I just want you guys all to get a hang of fetch कैसे काम कर रहा है. That's all. Guys, are you trying? If you are, please write one in chat. And एक बार जब complete होगा तब फिर एक और one डालना. चलो, I'll give you guys 4 minutes for this. So by 48, everyone please try this. Here's the fetch code for your reference. But I would recommend कि एक बार अपने आप से try करो. Didn't get the question? Simple a question. I have shared a link with you guys, that fake store wala. Open that. Visit any of these 3 endpoints and data fetch करके console करो. That's all. अभी clear है? अभिजीत, question clear है? All right. Correct, Sheikh. Flipkart and other websites का भी data access कर सकते हैं. If you have access to their API, yes, but API के पैसे लगते हैं. You have to take subscription. These are all fake store API, right? Free API है. Although there are many free APIs available, but if you have access to API, na, you are gonna have access to that data. And if you have access to that data, you can create your own websites. All right. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. Actually, in the second half of lecture, we're gonna create a movie application. Like we should be able to search and all. I'll show you. Just complete this and then we'll discuss it about that. Where should I get data in bulk? You might want to find some stuff. I have had a list actually, but I might have lost it. अगर मेरे को मिलता है तो I'll post it in your notes and all. Take, I had a list of free APIs and all. It must be somewhere. I need to find that. I'll check. I'll check. Yeah, you can go and check like footer section में जाके एक बार API section check करना. If you guys are familiar with this finance website Zerodha करके, right? So it has a nice API and it's free too. ठीक? So although it's not historical data, it's just live data, but yeah, you can get data from there live. So if you think you want to create something from that, you can of course use it. Also, like Google Maps and all, iske API, you can get sort of free. So it's like free trial of stuff. You can like make 10 to 15 requests per day. And yeah, you can use it. So you'll go and read documentation. You'll get an idea from that. Okay, people, are we done with fetch or not? All right, I can see the responses. Rohit, correct. Karan, correct. Rahul, we need one more. Then else correct. All right, guys, quickly. Jaldi. Redstone data 404 एरर आ रहा है क्योंकि योर जेसन इज कैपिटल. जेसन को स्मॉल करो. फंक्शन है. फंक्शन एकदम जैसा नाम है वैसे ही कॉल करना पड़ेगा. राइट. राहुल करेक्ट. या ऑलराइट. चलो पीपल, लेट्स मूव फॉरवर्ड. ठीक है. तो नेक्स्ट एजेंडा विल बी क्रिएटिंग मूवी एप्लीकेशन, राइट? And इस application में we need features like we should be able to search movies based on our input, or rather we can call it query. ठीक. We should be able to store history. ठीक. And we should be able to visit individual uh, movie page. Like if we click on that movie, we should be able to see the detail of that movie and all. Right? So individual movie page. And I mean, we can go for fourth thing, but if we have time, then only. Abhi ke liye, let's discuss about these three. Take, so for this, we are gonna use a API which is gonna be called OMDB API, right? This thing. So OMDB API, this one. Take, now this API needs an API key. Take, let me discuss that quickly. there are APIs which are free, then there are APIs which are paid. Take this OMDB API is like at middle of somewhere. It's not exactly free, but again, it's not paid. So you have to like get your API key, right? You'll click on API key and इसके बाद you will send provide your email here free पे करके you will provide your email here and you will do a submit, right? So once you have filled this entire data, use के लिए just write study purpose, that's fine. Submit it, आपको आपके email account पे you will get that API. API नहीं, API key. तो everyone quickly काम करो, try and retrieving this API quickly. I'll share the link. I lost this key. Gmail पे जाओ and search OMDB. जिस भी जो भी मेल दिया आपने, you'll find that key. आपके email पे ही रहेगा वो. I sent it. Let me send it everyone. All right. So I have shared a URL. I hope everyone has received it, right? URL पे जाओ, you'll see this interface. इस पे click on API key. API key पे select free, right? Because we don't want to be patron for now. We're going to add our email address. We're going to add our first name, last name. We're going to add a use and we're going to submit it. Once you have submitted, you should be receiving that API key in your email, जो भी आपने use किया पे. And we're going to just use that. बस इतना सा करें. Just fill this form. That's all. Clear है क्या करना है guys? Clear है? Everyone? तो I'll give you guys 2 minutes for this. It should not take more than that. Quickly try to do it. And if you have received that API key, just write 1 in chat. All right, great. So I can see 7 to 8 people have received it. For few, it might take some time. So that's fine. That's fine. Although you are gonna do it after a lecture. So bus ye process I wanted to make clear ki for some APIs, I mean most of the API are gonna give you an API key. So you need that API key for visiting or using this API. ठीक है, चलो let's try to understand this API real quick. So it's OMDB API. I hope you guys are familiar with IMDb ratings and all. IMDb scores and all, right? So that website rates your movies and all, right? तो यहाँ पे we are getting that database, entire movie and series का पूरा database हमें मिल रहा है, right? The documentation for this thing is very small. You can see send all data request to this website with API key with as your key, whatever your key is. ठीक? Now for the parameters, we have to put these type of parameters to search them, right? So let's say we want to create it by search. We don't want to go by ID or title क्योंकि ये थोड़ा limiting हो जाएगा. We just want to search anything that is present by that name. ठीक, I didn't got yet API key. It can take some time, right? So it can take hour, it can take 2 hour. For some, a key has already been activated. तो आप अपने Google पे जाओ and write OMDB. Not Google, your email address, whatever email you have, just write OMDB. You'll maybe find it. ठीक, and we are going to use these parameters to search these movie titles. What do I mean by these parameters? Let's say I'm visiting this website, right? Let me just copy this and let me just paste it in here. ठीक, for now, I'm getting a response as false and error as invalid API key because I haven't provided my valid API key. So let me just provide my valid API key. I have my API and I will just paste it here. Okay. So if I paste it, if I do an enter, now we are getting response false. अभी हमें API key का error नहीं आ रहा है. We are getting incorrect IMDb ID or something. So if I go back in here, यहाँ पे we have these parameters जिसके बेस पे हम सर्च कर सकते हैं, right? So let's say यहाँ पे if I go and जब भी आपको query लिखना होता है ना, तो in your website you write your link, उसके बाद you add a question mark and उसके बाद whatever things you wanna add you keep on adding. तो API key is there, then I'll add a and उसके बाद I'll write S. Let's say I wanna search for Avengers, right? So Avengers, right? If I press enter, I'm gonna get all the data based on that thing, right? So this is how we search for data. Is that clear कि data कैसे search होता है ना? ठीक. Now we are gonna actually use this stuff in our fetch. ठीक. So first let's go and set up our application. ठीक. So let's go in here and yeah, let's create our application. Let me create a folder. So movie search. I guess I'm just gonna name my application this, and इसके अंदर we're gonna have a index.html, not htm. HTML, and I'm gonna have one index.js. Thick. So let's have that. Oh, index.js में करना. ठीक है. Now let me quickly attach the script here. JS and यहाँ पे. ठीक है. तो let's keep this minimal. हमें क्या चाहिए? We need a search bar for like writing our input, जो भी हमें search करना है, and we need a button to submit. Yes, फिलहाल के लिए we just need these two stuff. ठीक. तो let's do one thing. Let's make a section and it's gonna be for nav bar, right? तो एक section बनाते हैं and this thing I'm gonna call it nav bar. ठीक. Now in this nav bar, what do we want? हमें क्या चाहिए? We need a input box which should be taking our input, and we need a button, right? So this input is gonna have an ID. What can I call this? Search input, and I'm gonna have a button. I'm gonna call it search button, right? And this thing will be for searching, right? And maybe we can add a symbol or something here. So let's go with this thing, right? Okay. And we're gonna have one more section जहाँ पे when we are gonna search for something, right, based on our URL. तो हमें JSON data मिलने वाला है. We know कि we're gonna do fetch in this, so we're gonna get JSON data. We should be showing it somewhere. I'll be showing it here, right? I'm gonna name it as class, and I'm gonna call this thing container, right? Windows plus dot. Take to get emojis in your HTML. So let me just copy this and let me just keep it there. So let me run my URL based on this thing. And yeah, we have our input there. Take. Now, of course, we need some updates here. So ek kaam karte hain. I'm not gonna create a different CSS file, although that would be better actually. So let's create a separate CSS file. I hope you guys remember how can we link a separate CSS file. Index.css. So yeah, let's quickly link that thing. We'll need to create a relation. So this is basically your style sheet, and we need to provide the href. So that's gonna be index.css. Take. Now we have this nav bar. Nav bar should be at the top and things should be in center. That would make more sense. So let's go and fix that thing. So dot nav bar, let me get this, and let's make the width to be 100%. Let's make the height to be let's say 4 rem. You guys are aware about rem or not? Rem के बारे में aware हो क्या? All right. So if you guys are not, 1 rem is equals to roughly 16 pixel. So this is your calculation if you want to know about it. ठीक. And rem is actually a bit more better to use with your width and all, क्योंकि it changes with itself. ठीक. So let's go with rem. For rem, and let's make the background color to be क्या करना है with background color? Not sure. Let's go with T, I guess. ठीक. So we have this. Now I'm gonna get lot of data here. So I want this navbar to be fixed, right? Navbar should be fixed in here. तो मैं क्या करूँगा? I'm gonna make the position to be fixed. ठीक. So now this navbar is gonna be there, and I'm gonna make the top to be 0, ताकि it is stick to its top, and I'm gonna make my left to be 0. ठीक. तो now अभी क्या होगा? No space will be there from left and top. ठीक. ठीक. And finally these are your inline elements, right? तो inline element को center करने के लिए we have a simple thing, text line center, and you're gonna get all the stuff in center. तो एक काम करते हैं, let's give padding to 1 rem overall. तो नहीं, let's go with just padding top. ठीक है. And now in this nav bar जो input box है, let's make the width to be actually 400 pixel. थोड़ा बड़ा हो गया. Let's keep it 350, and let's give it some padding. So padding 10 pixel. Same thing goes for our button. So nav bar के अंदर जो button है, make the width to, I think the width is fine. We can just give it some padding, right? So let's go with same as input. So थोड़ा बड़ा हो गया. Let's keep it 8, I guess. ठीक है. So seems fine, right? And dot nav bar के अंदर button, I'm gonna add active so that whenever we're clicking on that button, we should be changing some things. So I'm just gonna update the background color to red. If I click on this, I'm gonna update this thing to red. Think, although it's not looking really nice at all. Border of none. कोई color suggest करो, guys. Suggest me colors, people. Gray, okay. Same to same. Aqua, I guess. Let's go with that. ठीक है, this seems better. चलो, तो we have our basic CSS here. ठीक. Now what we want is whenever I write some input, I should be able to get it. एक काम करो. We're gonna continue it. Have a break of 3 minutes and then get back. Background gray and border black. Break के बाद करते हैं. आओ एक बार quick break लेकर आओ और फिर we'll cover everything in continuous fashion. Get back at 7, guys, everyone. All right, everyone back, people. ठीक है, चलो. So CSS, let's keep it as it is. अभी के लिए ठीक है. Now let's go for our functionality. ठीक. तो guys, trust me, going forward, everything is gonna be very easy. ठीक. Fetch is easy, how getting data is easy, but there will be minute details जो कि मैं आप लोगों से पूछूंगा. You have to tell me and keep in mind कि वो चीजें अभी minute लग रही है, but in interviews when someone asks ना, you are gonna get stuck if you don't keep things in steps. मतलब अगर steps में नहीं सीखोगे तो. ठीक. I'm gonna teach everything in steps, just be a bit attentive. ठीक. जैसे कि maybe someone asks कि load कैसे करोगे, तो you might get an error there. तो simple है, but you need to be attentive still. चलो ठीक. So in HTML I have two things. I have an input box and I have a button, right? And I have this container. So I need to quickly get everything ताकि we should be able to access it from DOM. So let's go with container, and I'm gonna do a document dot query selector, and I hope I have created everything in classes. So this one is class and these two are ID. All right, so this thing will be my container, and then I have search input. This thing was ID, right? So search input, and then let search button equals to document dot query selector, and इसके अंदर hash search. I hope मैंने उसको btn ही लिखा था. ठीक है. ठीक. तो we have selected all this stuff. ठीक. यहाँ पे if I write something, if I click on search, I should be able to console it somewhere. How can I do that? Console पे how can I print this thing in my console? Event. So let's add that event search button पे, right? So I'm gonna pick search button dot add event listener. Which event do we want? Click, and I want to run a function, right? So what can we call this function? Load search data. Take or load me. Let's name it get search data. Take, and yeah, let's go and run this function get search data. Okay. So guys, we have URL. Yes, हमारे पास कहाँ पे सर्च किया था हमने, ये रहा. We have our URL, right? Back to document, and ये वाला था कि ये वाला था, ये वाला, right? ठीक है. So we have our URL. You guys tell me, क्या search पे we are gonna search different movies, or we are gonna always search this movie? We should be able to search different movies, right? So let's say यहाँ पे जाके if I do fetch and इसके अंदर if I try to paste URL, should I paste this entire URL, or should I tweak it some way so that this thing becomes a bit more dynamic? So tell me, how can I make this thing a bit more dynamic? And people use अपने key use करना, because this thing has a limit. ठीक, API key has a limit of 1000 responses per day. ठीक, तो एक दिन में you can fetch 1000 times. ठीक, तो चल input dot value रख दो मूवी की जगह. yes, all right, but how can I make this thing dynamic कि जब भी चाहूँ I can put it. Let's say जब भी मैं click कर रहा हूँ, I'm getting let input value equals to search input dot value. तो ये वैल्यू मैं इसके अंदर कैसे डालूं URL में? एनी आइडिया? करेक्ट जीवन. टेम्पलेट लिटरल, राइट? टेम्पलेट लिटरल. तो हर्षित ऑल्सो करेक्ट. ठीक. So let's go with template literal rather than this thing. So template literal, and इसके अंदर I'm gonna paste this, right? This thing I can update it. So this, right? So I want input value there, and I can also update my API key here. So I can just get this thing, and paste it in here. Okay, so API. Okay. So now I have created a fetch system in which I'm getting the value. I'm putting that dynamic value in this URL. Take now, should we go with dot then and all, given that this is promise? So first dot then क्या करता है? It gets the data. Do we need to convert it into JSON format? So should we do res.json? Right? And this thing being that it is promise again, we have to do a then with it again. So if I go and do res, if I go and let's say I'm just consoling that res. So should I be getting the data now? Take, I'm not gonna automatically get the data. I'll have to check, right? So let's say I'm searching it, right? So if I search for it, let's see if we are getting that data or not. So yeah, we are actually getting that search data. Easy, easy, right? So now we should be able to show this data in our UI, right? Is that really easy part? कुछ भी मुश्किल है उसमें? We just need to create a function. Let's call it show data or something, and this thing is gonna receive data. ठीक. Now how can I send my data in this show data? Show data के अंदर I should be getting the array and I will do a for each on it. Getting my point? What's the step? Right? How can I do that? Let me show you the response once again. I have this response, उसके अंदर we have a search array. Call show data in dot then. All right. So I'm gonna call my show data. Then I'll need to do res dot search or not. I need to send that specific array. Right? Right? So let's do that and let me console data यहाँ पे. So console.log data. Like, although we are doing it, I won't recommend कि dot notation use करो in your params, but ठीक है. Yeah, so we are getting that data. Right? Now, should we be able to show that data in UI? Right? So let's see data में क्या है. We have poster, we have title, we have type, and we have movie. Right? So let's get all this thing. I'm gonna paste it here so that we can trace upon it easily. So ठीक है. Let's go and create a card for this thing, right? So I'm gonna pick data and I'm gonna run a for each on it. Take for each on it. What does for each takes? A callback function. We are gonna pick elements in it, and these elements are gonna be each individual objects. Yes, yes, guys. 1-0 में respond करो because I'm doing lots of stuff here so that आप लोग सो ना जाओ पीछे. I'm afraid of that क्योंकि आपको कुछ अभी करना नहीं है. तो एटलीस्ट आंसर मी विद 1 and 0. ठीक, अगर मैं ये भी पूछूं ना कि ये ELE मैंने स्पेलिंग ठीक लिखा है, आप लोगों को 1 लिखना है क्विकली एवरीवन. ठीक, तो ELE की स्पेलिंग ठीक है. ठीक है, चलो. तो लेट्स नेम वेरिएबल. I'll be needing image, I'll be needing a title, and I'll be needing that. So let's create image first. Image equals to, how do we create new images in HTML? Create element, right? So I'm gonna go with document dot create element. अभी इसके अंदर what should I be writing? What element do I have to create? Image. So I'm gonna write image. ठीक. Now let me just write a syntax here. I'm gonna keep it as fillers, and इसको I'm gonna make it like this. ठीक. So now yes. So I'm creating image tag, right? Us tag mein we need to add src, right? And that src has to get a link. Yes. How can I add src? How can I add attribute? I'll have to do image.src. I'm going to access that attribute. we have seen with style, we have seen with color and all. ठीक, तो image.src किया and it should have value of poster, right? Right. तो यहाँ पे I'm gonna do element dot poster. ठीक, so I'm basically giving this image का src this certain value. All right, let's go and create title. So document dot create element, and let's go with P for this, and image title dot inner HTML, and इसको let's make it a bit bold. So title is gonna be bold, and then rest stuff is gonna be your it's gonna be ele dot title. Thick, and let's add one more stuff. So let's just add ear. Thick. So let ear equals to document dot create element, and इसके अंदर thick. Guys, any spelling mistakes so far? दो है, बताओ तो जल्दी कौन से है? And this should be your ear. So ठीक है, टाइटल इज टाइटल, मैंने कॉपी पेस्ट ही कर दिया. ठीक, तो ये फाइन है. और कोई इशू गाइस, कोई टाइपो? नो, सब सो रहे हो? नहीं, वो फिर से देखो. ठीक है, राहुल नहीं सो रहा है, ज्योति नहीं सो रही है, और बाकी is this gonna be static or is this gonna be dynamic? राइट, तो गाइस सोना बंद करो, आधे घंटे बाद सोने. ठीक, एलिमेंट्स क्रिएट हो गए, एलिमेंट्स को वैल्यू चली गई. अब वी हैव अ टारगेट कंटेनर जहां पे चीजें पेस्ट करनी. अब अपेंड, ठीक है, ठीक है. सो विल इट मेक मोर सेंस कि हम एक सेपरेट डिव बनाते हैं हर एक चीज के लिए, एंड देन अपेंड ऑल दैट डेटा टू डिव, एंड फाइनली कंटेनर में वो डिव अपेंड कर देना. दैट विल मेक दिस थिंग अ बिट मोर modulus, right? So let's create a div, and let me create document dot create element div, right? And इस div के अंदर let's go and append div dot append. I want image, I want my title, and I want the year that movie was released. And finally container में जाके I'll need to append these divs. Yes, yes, ठीक है. So let's go and see if you're doing things fine or not. ठीक है, मैंने Avenger search कर दिया, and yeah, we are getting data. ठीक, तो data is coming here, it is getting appended. We can fix the CSS a bit, so let's fix it. Let's show it in grid fashion, है ना? तो ठीक है, index.css में we have our container, right? Container के अंदर we are gonna have divs. कंटेनर के अंदर we are gonna have divs जो हम create कर रहे हैं in for each, right guys? This div है ना, है ना? And this div एक काम करते हैं, कंटेनर को पकड़ते हैं, and let's make the display as grid. ठीक, and grid के अंदर grid template columns, let's go for repeat 4, 1 FR. ठीक, तो that's fine. अभी dot container के अंदर div के अंदर image, let's make the width to be 80%, right? And I think इसने height अपने आप fix कर दिया. ठीक है, तो it's looking much better now. Width 80%, that's fine. And ठीक है, let me add a gap in here. So gap, let's go with 10 pixels. ठीक है, तो that seems fine, right? Now ये container I can give this container a width. So let's say इसको मैंने 80% width दिया and I'm gonna set it into center. तो margin auto. All right, and margin top, let's say 4 or 4, not, let's go with 8, right? ठीक है, looks better, right? Looks better. All right, so we have actually created a search functionality in our application. ठीक, so shall we go and search for something else? Yes, so let's say I'm searching Shrek. Are we getting the data at all? कौन बताएगा क्या हो रहा है इधर? मैंने बटन पे क्लिक किया, I was searching that data. Am I getting the data? मिल रहा है क्या डेटा? I am actually getting the data, right? I'm getting the movies named by Shrek, right? But the Avenger is still there. Do we need to scrape the initial data? Initial data को हटाना पड़ेगा, right? So whenever we are like rerunning this entire stuff, before that, should we not go and clear our container? So I'm gonna go and do container.inner.html equals to empty. Now, let's say if I'm searching Avenger, I'm gonna get that. And if I'm searching something else, I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna get that. Take clear how that all stuff is working. All right. ठीक है. Now let's say I refresh it again. I'm gonna search something, right? तो कोई any series जिसमें काफी movies है, Avengers हो गया. We have Fast and Furious. I guess we have many movies there. So I'm just gonna search by Fast. Right? So yeah, of course, we have so many movies. I'll write it once again. I'll press on search button. Tell me if you guys see a delay or not. ठीक, delay observe हो रहा है या नहीं बताना. I'm clicking on the search. Was there a bit of delay in the data? Right? Let's say if I'm writing Avengers, if I'm clicking on it, there is a bit of delay. ठीक, should you not tell users कि delay हो रहा है or they are not getting any response? Like if you search somewhere in websites, do they show you at least a loader? कि हाँ, your data is loading, will show that data slowly, right? So how can I do that? Maybe tell user कि जब तक ये promise चल रहा है, this thing, I'm just gonna tell them कि हाँ, data is loading. Any guesses? I have given you a very big hint. जब तक ये fetch चल रहा है, तब तक. Not exactly alert. When we are creating websites ना, we don't want users to do lot of work. उनको परेशान नहीं करना है. Alert देंगे, then they'll have to, उनको माउस ले जाना पड़ेगा ओके पे, फिर क्लिक करना पड़ेगा, काफी मेहनत है. अच्छा, tell me, this fetch, is it async or sync? Async. ठीक है, एक छोटी सी चीज बताना. If I write console.log start and if I write console.log end, am I gonna print start, then am I gonna wait for this fetch to end and then am I gonna print end? या फिर I'm gonna print start, I'm gonna print end and this thing is sent somewhere to be dealt with, कहीं और भेज दिया गया है. Start end data, everyone with me? सब कोई or not? 2 people are there, all right. 4, 5, 6. What about others? ठीक, तो we're gonna run this start, we're gonna run this end. ठीक, this thing will be dealt with others. तो मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ, up until we are fetching data, can I not tell users कि yeah, we are loading stuff? तो मैं container में जाके, if I go and write inner HTML, let's say I'm just writing h2, I'm just saying user कि we are loading it. ठीक, तो अभी क्या हुआ, when I'm running this function, no, we are updating the input value and this thing is being sent to your API. ठीक, तो ये हुआ and then this line is gonna run, yes or no, right? So let's say if I'm running, right, if I'm searching, you saw थोड़ी देर के लिए हमने लोडिंग शो किया, राइट? तो लेट्स से अभी तो ये दिस इज अ वाईफाई नेटवर्क सर, तो इट्स फास्टर देन 5G। अगर मैं जाके परफॉर्मेंस नेटवर्क पे जाके इफ आई डिक्रीज द परफॉर्मेंस, राइट, तो लेट्स से यहाँ पे इफ आई रिफ्रेश इट नाउ, तो चलो टेक टाइम। ठीक, नाउ लेट्स से अगर मैं अवेंजर्स सर्च करता हूँ, इफ आई एम सर्चिंग नाउ, यूजर को पता रहेगा कि वी आर लोडिंग दैट इट, राइट? तो दैट हेल्प्स। Why that heading 2 is hiding again? क्योंकि हमने लोड कर लिया, तो we don't need that anymore। तो अभी क्या हो रहा है, this inner HTML is getting scraped once this function is running, right? ये function run कर रहा है, तो this thing is going on here, right? And when is this function running? When this promise is completed। ठीक, finally dot then में we are calling this function, all right? How can I center it? You have this h2, right? तो कंटेनर के अंदर h2 को जाके डॉट कंटेनर, और ये सब करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है, डॉट कंटेनर के अंदर जाके ना जस्ट राइट टेक्स्ट अलाइन सेंटर। ठीक, आई होप दैट विल फिक्स आवर इशू। ठीक, सो ठीक है, जाके सर्च करते हैं। एक सेकेंड, लेट मी रिफ्रेश इट। अभी ये 3G में ही काम करेगा, कोई नहीं, हमारा ही अच्छा है, राइट? सो इफ आई सर्च इट, इट्स इन सेंटर बट उसका विड्थ कम करना पड़ेगा, तो ठीक है, डॉट कंटेनर के अंदर h2 and width should be fit content and margin को कर देते हैं, margin auto won't work, let's say I'm applying text line center in this two। ठीक, तो let's go and search now। क्या लोडिंग पे यार, डू वन थिंग, ये बाद में कर लेना, द विड्थ you'll need to fix and width को फिक्स करके तब सेंटर करना। ठीक, हाँ, कंटेनर पे अप्लाई कर सकते हो, राइट? आई हैव टू अप्लाई फ्यू मोर फीचर्स, दैट्स व्हाई आई एम इन बिट है। इतना क्लियर है गाइस? इतना क्लियर है कि how we are searching the data and everything is getting here, how we are searching another data and initial वाला data scrape हो रहा है, इतना बात क्लियर है, right? And whenever we are searching that data, we are showing a small loader। ठीक, now let's say I wanna store history also, कि search history में क्या क्या था, how can I do that? Do we have search histories, right? Right, so I want to store search history somewhere, how can I do that? Let's say यहाँ पे not this one, this one, यहाँ पे I have one more button and this says search history। Take, and this thing has an ID of search history button, right? I'll go in here and let me quickly access that button, so let search history button equals to document dot query selector and search history। ठीक, so ठीक है, if I'm running the search history button and event listener, I'm gonna add a click। ठीक, before adding functions, you guys tell me कैसे मैं स्टोर करूंगा search history, how will I do that? I just need to store the data, local storage। ठीक है, ठीक है, let's say कि अभी के लिए, I mean yeah, local storage that will work, but for now let's just say कि I'm just gonna store it somewhere, किसी array में, let's say in global array, let's say यहाँ पे let history, and from here yeah, of course you can send it in your local storage। So whenever I'm updating this data, show data, I'm sending my rest dot data. Can I not say कि मैं I can do one more thing, maybe data dot push जो भी हमने search किया, right? And that search is in our input value, right? So every time if I click on this search button, I'm gonna run this function and I'm gonna store my search history in this thing. Yes, yes, no, yes, no, guys, समझ आ रहा है? Right? This input value जो भी हमने input लिखा है, that is gonna be stored in here. ठीक? Now let's say I wanna show that data. So should I create another function for this show data के लिए? We have to push it in history array. Yeah, correct. तो history array में push कर दो. Correct. अभी ठीक है? Right? टाइपो है तो बताओ ना यार. मतलब मैं सोऊंगा तो आप लोग भी सो जाओगे. फिर जगह कौन रहेगा? ठीक है, चलो. सो मैं क्या करता हूँ, एक काम करते हैं. Rather than doing this ना, let's send function, right? And इसके अंदर I'm gonna call get search data. Search data, ठीक है. यहाँ पे we can send a parameter, right? तो let's call it flag. ठीक. अब whenever I'm clicking on this function, now this function needs an array to iterate over, right? So we have a history array. So what I can do is I can go and write show data and उसके अंदर I'll pass my history array. ठीक. And I'm gonna pass a parameter which is gonna be called history. ठीक. And यहाँ पे I'm gonna pass this and I'm gonna pass search. ठीक. So I'm gonna take let me remove this thing. I'm gonna take this entire thing and I'm gonna write if flag equals to search. ठीक. I'm gonna run this piece of code. Else if flag is equals to history, I'm gonna run this piece of code. इतना बात क्लियर है? थोड़ा else if ऊपर नीचे हो गया. ठीक. ठीक है. तो I'm gonna run this function based on whatever flag is passed. इतना बात क्लियर है? तो whenever I'm searching for my search वाला show data, I'm sending it with a search so that this piece of code is gonna append to your container. Clear? Chalo, let me walk you through once more. I have created this function search data, right? Whenever I'm searching data, I'm calling that show data function. This function, right? Now this thing is receiving two stuff, a data array and a flag, a string. In here, जब भी मैं search कर रहा हूँ, in this show data, I'm passing res.search whichever array I have searched. ठीक. And I'm passing flag or identifier जो कि बोलता है this thing is from search. So if flag equals to search, I'm gonna run this piece of code data.forEach ये वाला run होगा and this data is gonna get appended. Else if I'm calling it from my search history button, so I'm gonna send show data, I'm gonna send this array and I'm gonna send this history. Clear? So this piece of code is gonna run. समझ आया? 1-0 flow समझ आया? ठीक. Now in here I have to just show that history, right? So history में we just have our क्या search किया हमने, right? I can just go and I can get the array. So data, it's gonna be history वाला array. I'm gonna run a for each. and इसके अंदर I'm gonna create array. Now outside I'm gonna create let let's create a ordered list. That's all. The ordered list document dot create element and this is gonna be your ordered list. And in here let li equals to document dot create element. I'm gonna create li, right? Remember list के अंदर ordered list and unordered list के अंदर list elements होते थे, list items, right? So li dot inner text will be your element. Take whatever was there. Function of let's take this thing. Function and in this only possible this thing. Finally, I'm gonna ol dot append these li and ye ol. Once this for each is done running, I'm gonna append it to container dot append ol. Okay, let's see. So let's say if I'm searching for Avengers, right? If I search it, I should be sending that data in my history now. So yeah, Avenger is there. Let's say I'm searching this. The data should be there. This and yeah, let's see. Okay, so far I have did I not pressed it. Okay, so let's say if I'm clicking on search history, we're getting the data, but we're not appending it. We have missed something. Nay, element is that OL is not appended. OL is not appended. We are appending it here. So container dot append OL, that's happening. All right, I'm going to create ordered list, and then we are going to for each document dot create element. We are creating li dot inner text is element. OL is let not where, but it's in your global scope, no? Is scope के relative ये global name, so it should be accessible inside. OL need to append on DOM. We are append. तो guys OL यहाँ पे create किया है ना? It should be available there. That's fine. OL. History array. So data we are sending our history. Achha, might be the issue of setting things. So एक काम करता हूँ, I'm gonna send these things after. एक event एक बार सारा data load हो जाएगा तब जाके add करेगा. Let's see. So first let's search. Search history. ठीक है. So the issue was that data was appended, but we were accessing that event listener before हमने history array define किया था, right? तो वो execution context वाला thing was getting in play. ठीक, तो we were accessing add event listener before we were defining history. ठीक, so now we are getting the history also. Fine. Doubts or no doubts? All right. ठीक है, तो चलो data मिल रहा है, that's great and all. We have that data, but let's say if I want to select or check more about this movie, तो मैंने इस movie पे click किया, I want to know more about this thing, right? Not just किस year में release हुआ, what's the rating, what's the description and all. So should I be able to do that? This div should be clickable, right? Right? So we can do that. हम क्या करेंगे? First we'll need to see कि is there any identity like unique identity on all the objects, right? And given that this is API, so it is of course gonna have an ID, right? Remember I told you it's gonna have unique ID. Every database ka data is gonna have unique ID. So it has one which is stored in form of IMDb ID, right? These are gonna be unique and we're gonna use these for our reference. ठीक, एक काम करते हैं. Let's create one more page and let's call it product page, or rather movie detail.html. ठीक, and यहाँ पे for now I'm not gonna create a different script, इसी में लिख देते हैं. But let me name it movie to movie detail. ठीक है, so back to index.html. Yeah, ठीक है. So in here we have this div, right? And we want to make this div clickable. How does that happen? ये div को clickable कैसे बनाऊं? Div.add event listener, right? Button नहीं, I want to make that entire div ही, I want to make it that, right? So div.add event listener, right? And let's say this is gonna be click and in or movie detail, right? I'm gonna call a function. We'll need to call it inside it. Take, I'm gonna call a function which is gonna be called movie detail, right? And we should be sending that unique identifier, right? ID भेजनी पड़ेगी so that the button knows ki where it has been clicked from. So I'm gonna send ele dot what was that? Let me search quickly. I hope I have covered this here. So it's IMDb ID, right? So ele dot IMDb ID, right? Let's create this function, movie detail function. So function movie detail, and it's gonna accept ID. Let me just console.log that ID, right? So let's search for Avengers, and if I search for it, I'm getting this. If I click on this, I'm getting that certain ID, right? Click थोड़ा visible नहीं है, एक काम करते हैं. Where is it? navbar नहीं, कंटेनर के अंदर का div. Yeah, so कंटेनर के अंदर का div, whenever this thing is getting active, no, हम क्या करते हैं, we apply box shadow. तो 2 pixel let's keep the spread radius 4 pixel and color, let's go with blue. थोड़ा dark हो जाएगा, but that's fine. Let's say if I'm clicking on this, right? So now it's more visible कि कौन सा div click हो रहा है, right? So if I click on this, I'm getting उसका ID. If I click on this, I'm gonna get that ID. Clear? ठीक है. Now that we have that ID, how can I share it in this page, movie detail page? What is the thing that we use to share data between each other? दो pages में. Was it local storage? Local storage, right? So we just need to send a single string ID. So I can just go and do local storage dot set item. Key नाम दूंगा. Let's say I'm calling it movie ID, and I'm going to provide that value. It's a string, so I don't need to go and do set JSON dot stringify. Yes, if I wanted to store object and array, तब मुझे करना पड़ता. For now, I won't have to do it. Remember, guys, local storage याद है? How do I get item? Local storage dot get item, correct. Okay, so now that this is done, we have set that data to local storage. Now we should send our user to that product page, right? So how can you do that? In functions, बिना anchor tag के. Correct. We can do window dot location dot href, right? And where do we want to send our users to? Movie detail dot html, right? So I'm gonna send them to movie detail dot html, right? So let's go and check that out. Avengers, right? I'm searching it. I'm clicking on this thing and I'm sending my user to movie detail page, right? अभी क्या करते हैं? let's go and check our application. Do we have that data or not? So yeah, we have that movie ID, right? हमारे पास movie ID है. Now how can I retrieve all the movie detail from a movie ID? तो हमने टाइटल से सर्च करना देखा. Should we go for that movie ID? API में ही you are gonna get that, right? And ID से कैसे सर्च करते हैं? Parameter I, and if you provide a valid IMDb ID, you should be getting that thing, right? Let's try it. Let's try it. So this thing is there. Let's say मैंने I लिखा, I and equals to what was that ID? User ID क्या था? Not user ID, that IMDb one. Let me copy this and let's paste it. Let's see. Let's see. So if I'm clicking on it, am I getting that specific detail? Right? You see, it's saving us all that time. Filter वगैरह लिखने का झंझट, it's ending all that. है ना? तो यहाँ पे जाके we are gonna get our ID. So let ID equals to, how do I get it from local storage, people? Get item, get item. So I'm gonna do local storage dot get item. ठीक, and that key. So that key was a movie ID, right? Let me just copy and paste it. So let's paste it here. Okay, let me go and check that out. Console.log the ID, right? So if I go to my console, I'm getting that ID. Right now, should we fetch again with this ID? So yeah, let's do that fetch. Fetch and that URL. So this URL, let me just paste it in here, and I'm gonna make this ID part dynamic. So let's make this ID part dynamic. Now, given that this ID part is dynamic, let me make this API key part dynamic also. So Control X, this thing is gonna hold API tick and let API key equals to. ठीक है, तो fetch dot then let's quickly do the deeds. Is we have to return res.json. This is going to be a promise again, so I need to do a dot then again. Now this is going to be res, and this is gonna give us some data, right? So let's say कि once we are getting that data, first let's see कि कौन सा data मिल रहा है. So let's res, and yeah, we are getting this data. Okay, so let's run a load function, right? Or we can just copy it from our index.js. We don't have to go and do all of that again and again. But उसकी जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी, है ना? We're getting poster and all. Anyways, let's just copy this. Movie detail. Let's run a function show data, right? And इसके अंदर let's just send this res. Now this function show data, इसके अंदर it gets the data and can just write this, right? So we're creating div and let's name it ELE. So ELE.poster is gonna get fixed. ELE title is gonna get fixed and all. Container हमें बनाना पड़ेगा अपने HTML में. So let's create a container. Section ID container and so dot get element by ID and container. Okay, so yeah, we are getting that. Okay, so we are able to show that. Now we can incorporate many more data, right? You see how in depth the data are, right? So you can go and add language, you can go and add director and all. right? So let's say I'm gonna create two divs, right? मैं एक div 1 बनाऊंगा and मैं एक let div 2 equals to document create element and एक और div बनाऊंगा, ठीक? div 1 में we are gonna append basic details. तो div 1 में we are gonna have image, we are gonna have title, we are gonna have year, और क्या add कर सकते हैं, and we can add the cast, right? But okay, let's add the cast. So director. So check it here, and this thing can also be fixed. Mm, Capital, yes. Then we can add a director. So let this is gonna be P again, director dot inner HTML, and we'll just copy this thing, paste it. ठीक, तो ये हो जाएगा director element dot here. Director, it's gonna be cap. Okay, so all right, let's refresh it real quick. Div is not defined, so div 1. Checking, we refresh it. Reference error. Okay, div 1 not click on, right? Not this. Check it. So yeah, we are creating a data set. यहाँ पे we are adding all of that stuff. Let me add director also. ठीक, and then I can go and add a different div 2 जिसमें we can just have, let's say, plot, right, equals to document dot create element p and plot dot inner HTML. This thing is again gonna be right. So plot and what happened here? So okay. And I can append this to div 2, right? div 2 dot append, इसके अंदर I can append my plot and बाद में जाके यहाँ पे भी div 2, right? ठीक है, and finally I can make the container to be flex ताकि दोनों div सामने सामने आ जाए. So style and इसके अंदर hash container display flex, right? And hash container के अंदर का div जो भी होगा margin left. All right, so if I go back and if I cross it, now I'm getting my this data here, and दूसरा div I can get all the data here. Now we can put all your cast and all. Take and एक काम कर सकते हैं, one more small thing, we can add a button here, right? So let's add a button, home page, and let's add a on click here itself, home page, and यहाँ पे let's run that function home page, and it's nothing but window dot location of href, and that is gonna send data to index.html. ठीक है, so ठीक है, back to home page. Now let's say कि I'm searching from something else. So let's go with that. I'm searching it, right? So if I click on this, now I should be able to see the detail of this movie, right? Back, I can search from something else. I can search that. I can search my history too. Clear? So basically, we have created a end-to-end website where we are like creating sort of search platform. We're storing our history too, and we're showing the entire data of that by using fetch. कोई doubt, guys? कुछ भी? Is JSON.parse not required for getting ID from local storage? So here's the thing. कहाँ पे कर रहे हैं हम लोग? यहाँ पे, right? So now when we were setting it, right? Index.html में, no, नहीं, index.js में, when we were setting it here, this thing is still a string, right? ID is just a string. The string can be sent as string and received as string. वहीं पे if you're sending object is again gonna be converted to string, so we can't do it there. ठीक, so उसी लिए you have your string क्या होता है? It's gonna still get converted to string, कोई फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता string को. Clear? तो ये देखो, we just wrote these simple lines of code and we were able to create such a strong system, right? So even Google platform uses something like this. It has a search feature. You go and search for something in there, right? So let's say you are searching for something in here, you are gonna get that data, right? You have applied loading section, how you can load something, that's called loader. Let's say you wanna search for history, कि आपने search history में क्या किया है, तो you can go and search your history. Now again, this history is gonna be removed once I refresh. If I wanna persist it, I can just simply use local storage, है ना? Right? So we can just go for local storage and we can store all the data. You can try it there. I will share this code and you can try it any way you want. Take, so I can go and do that. Let's say I want to select and search for a specific thing. तो मैं इस पे click करूँगा and I'll be able to see the detail there. Right? इसी तरीके से let's say कि you are creating a product page. So you are going to create some product. Let's say कि I'm searching for shoes. So I'm searching for shoes, right? तो I'll be searching for that shoes. I'll be clicking on that shoe. यहाँ पे एक और फीचर आ जाएगा, add it to cart. ठीक, once I have seen that product, मैं उसको कार्ट में ऐड कर दूंगा. तो इस तरीके से it works. All right, clear? Any doubts till now? After many days, I got properly today. हाँ, तो that was the point, no? अभी तक हम लोग सीख रहे थे क्या करना है. अगर मैं आपको सीधे fetch बताता, तो would you have any idea कि promise क्या है? भाई promise chaining क्यों कर रहे हो? आप क्या कर रहे हो? भले ही आपको ये सिंटैक्स रट लेते, बट यू वोंट हैव नोन कि कैसे काम कर रहा है, राइट? तो आई हैव जस्ट आस्क्ड वन फंडामेंटल डिटेल टू यू गाइस कि लोडर कैसे लगाएंगे. ट्रस्ट मी गाइस, आई हैव टेकन मेनी इंटरव्यूज. यू गिव योर हुकुमा इंटरव्यूज एंड ऑल, राइट? आई हैव टेकन ऑन लेवल अप प्लेटफॉर्म इटसेल्फ and I've seen that people are not able to apply this simple thing. ठीक, because they don't remember कि हाँ ये चीज async है, तो you're gonna run this line and then this line is gonna run. ये है ही नहीं बीच में. ठीक, तो again not their fault. महीने भर बाद if you guys don't keep these fundamentals in mind ना, you might also make this silly mistake, है ना? So yeah, keep these things in mind. अगर basics याद रखोगे, you can go and do anything in JavaScript. That's all fine.